The last video we did is actually not the Bilderberg report we were planning on doing. We were planning on doing a Bilderberg report about the technology, which plays a much larger part in the overall plan that Bilderberg seems to have been working towards all of these years, actually. But then we saw the convergence of the geopolitical stuff, and it had to be said. So this is the report we were planning to bring you before all of that happened.
And it's become increasingly evident that Bilderberg is not just an important place for global financiers and politicians and those who are in the realm of geopolitical events, but it's also a very important convergence for technology, and that is reflected by its regular attendance from amongst the Silicon Valley elite, who are now heavily represented on Bilderberg's steering committee, and they're there every year. And they're not only covering topics like artificial intelligence and quantum computing, for which they've invited multiple figures from within Google and from other institutions, including MIT, but they're very much focused on the city of the future, the 21st century smart city that they promised everyone.
Yes, we love the opportunities and excitement of the city. But there is another side to this picture. Well,
that is now being implemented. We see several projects in the works amongst the membership of this year's meeting. And one of those projects is represented in a forgettable figure on the list, Maria Ranka, who has not held any high positions of government, but who is the Stockholm, Sweden Chamber of Commerce director. But it turns out, if you look into her, she's working with the Brookings Institute based in the US on Global Cities Initiative, which is being implemented in Stockholm as well as in dozens of US cities, and it's being modeled in places across the world.
I would say that the openness to the world is really key to our success. We were the birthplace of the mobile phone and the first 4G network in commercial use. Stockholm is a city that is being coded by computer programmers.
There seems to be two overarching projects here that are represented that really are where everything in the world is headed right now. And one is happening in little tiny Estonia there next to Russia, and the other is happening in Saudi Arabia.
And while Saudi Arabia doesn't have anyone attending the Bilderberg meeting, what they do have is Klaus Kleinfeld, the German-born guy who's also lived in the US, who's been on the Bilderberg steering committee for years and years and who attends every year. In the past, he's been known for being the CEO of Alcoa and of Siemens, so very big in industry and commerce and very big in data harvesting and planning for the future. You know, Siemens works with Disney World and all these high-tech places to implement basically feedback data to collect individualized data sets on people as they go through these environments. And in the real world, Klaus Kleinfeld, with his ties and experience in Siemens, is now overseeing the Special Future City project known as NEOM, N-E-O-M, which is being set up in Saudi Arabia in a wasteland desert that hasn't been used for anything else, but is located in a very strategic place.
NEOM comes from the Latin word for new, neo, and the M stands for the Arabic word future. So it's new future. And it's supposed to be exactly 33 times bigger than New York because we all know how they like their numerology. But also what they're saying about it is that this is a huge civilizational leap for humanity. It's going to be the next way we're all going to live. Everything is going to be artificial intelligence. There are going to be robots everywhere doing all kinds of things, including caretaking. I mean, if it sounds futuristic, if it sounds like it came out of a Philip K. Dick novel, it's probably going to be in this city.
Yeah, they're trying to integrate all the new technologies, and they claim they're going to be the basis of the most important parts of it. And the bottom line, it's going to be the first free trade zone that crosses international borders in the Middle East. It's a Saudi city-state, but it's going to be a free trade zone, and it branches out between Saudi Arabia, the tip of Egypt, and it kind of extends to Jordan and Israel as well, and they're all going to be partners. And just the Saudi government alone is investing $500 billion for this. They're attracting all kinds of outside capital.
They're saying basically this new zone is going to be a global hub that can connects Asia, Europe, and Africa, but it's going to have an autonomous judicial system, its own tax and labor laws. It's going to be able to power itself solely through renewable energy. It is not going to be answerable to the Saudi government or to any government. It's going to be an international free trade zone city. So this is going to be something new.
It's going to be the model city for 21st century smart cities. They're going to have people from around the world live there, shop there, go there for vacation, go to their beach resorts, but also fly through on the hubs and connect to the different major parts of the world that all come together in the Middle East. And so again, it's going to be the premier 21st century smart city. At least that's what they tell us. And they say, quote, "We want the main robot and the first robot in Neom to be Neom, robot number 1. That's what the Crown Prince said. And he's saying everything will have a link with artificial intelligence and with the Internet of Things. Everything. That's the city. That's the place they're building.
And the strangest thing about this is the politics that you see on the world stage right now do not match when it comes to what's actually going on in this Project Neom. It's more than just a smart city. It's more than just all the creepy things that go along with living in a smart city and a truly completely interconnected, no privacy having smart grid. But also behind the scenes of this, everyone's friends, because we're talking about business partnerships now that have nothing to do with politics anymore. And what I mean by that is back in April, so this past April, Prince Mohammed bin Salman came out and did an interview with The Atlantic where he not only said that Iran's supreme leader makes Hitler look good, because everyone's doing that right now because they're trying to heat up this thing with Iran, but he also said that he recognizes the Jewish people have a right to a nation state of their own next to a Palestinian state, which is something that no Arab leader has ever acknowledged. Publicly, that has never been acknowledged. Behind the scenes, they're saying that because of Neom, Saudi Arabia might recognize Israel. That this is what's getting ready to happen. Because Neom isn't just going to geographically connect Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and Egypt. It's also right there next to Israel and is going to connect to this new Medred railway that's going to run up through Jordan, up through Israel, and up through Tel Aviv. This is all about to be interconnected. So they've actually been in the process of having secret meetings right now, Saudi's Crown Prince, with Israel in investing, because a lot of Israeli tech companies want to invest in this Neom thing, and actually Israeli companies have been selling cybersecurity to Saudi Arabia. So behind the scenes, they're really good friends, and if you read these articles, they talk about how the only reason they haven't made this public is because the politics that are going on right now with Palestine and all of that. So they haven't made it public yet. Saudi Arabia has suddenly become very moderate. In fact, ever since the new king has come in, they've allowed women to drive. All kinds of things are starting to change over there very rapidly, actually. And strangely, and I've not seen this anywhere else, so I'm not going to report this as if this is just totally going to happen. It's just something that they have on the Neom website. And look, this is Neom. They actually have this logo here, which to me, you can clearly see an upside down pentagram in the middle of this. You've got a fingerprint here. You've got plants here. You've got digital stuff going on here. Interesting logo. But anyways, all of this stuff, by the way, has interesting symbols in them. If you look at their videos, they got all the one eye symbology, all that kind of stuff going on. This article right here is up on Neom News, the city of the future, and it says, according to reports, Russia and China are seeking to annex Israel, which has access to the Red Sea and the Mediterranean Sea, thereby transferring exports via a railway network in Israel. That's the one I just told you they're getting ready to build, saving the cost of sailing around Sinai and the cost of the Egyptian Suez Canal. Now, I've not seen anything anywhere else that would suggest that Russia and China are going to annex Israel. I've not seen that reported anywhere, but here it is on the Neom website, like that's just what's going to happen next. Interestingly, though, I will say that not only has Saudi Arabia been meeting with Israel on the Neom project, but a lot of the other people that are at Bilderberg this year, they've also been meeting. Italian companies are talking about playing a major role in the areas of robotics and information technology. They've been meeting with Saudi Arabia. You have all kinds of executives from American companies, major international companies that are meeting, and Russia is investing billions of dollars in Neom. billions. And the Russian foreign minister has been meeting with his Saudi counterpart over the last several years as well. And they're talking about Moscow finally fulfilling its envisioned 21st century geostrategic role in Eurasia. So they're linking all these things together. And on top of that, you have MIT's Media Lab being represented at Bilderberg this year. And MIT just signed a partnership with the NEOM project. And that was just announced, actually that was just announced a few months ago. In addition to the MIT AI ethics guy that's at Bilderberg this year, you also have this MIT Media Lab, and they're focused on all kinds of stuff, as you can clearly see here. Not just things like personal robots and things like that, but they're also focusing on things like neurobiology, emotive computing, hyper instruments, etc.
I mean, this is one of the places that it's evident that in spite of the rhetoric of all the conflicts between the world, infrastructure to actually integrate and unify the world, everyone is a participant. Money has been invested from across the globe, including the US, including Russia, including China, in a world that needs new trains and new cities and new places to go, new ways to get there, new types of air travel, an infrastructure upgrade to actually integrate the world. It's happening. And if you look behind the scenes just a little bit at the nitty-gritty, it's being put together right now, and the problems surrounding it and the controversies are even being discussed inside the Bilderberg meeting room because it's reflected in some of their attendees, such as the Latvia railroad person.
So this isn't going to just be your 21st century smart city with all the tracking and tracing and chipping and all of that kind of stuff totally going on built in from the ground up. But this is going to be a global hub that, like I said, they plan it to connect Asia, Europe, and Africa together. But they're even talking about how there's a proposal on the table right now creating a joint infrastructure project that's between Israel, Jordan, Egypt, and Saudi Arabia to build an airport there with 4 terminals that would allow passengers to disembark and travel to any of those 4 countries from one spot. So Israel and Saudi Arabia, not enemies. They may look like it somehow on the world stage. It may look like it's the Middle Eastern bloc versus Israel, but it's not. It's clearly not, okay? And Israel and Russia have been really good friends in Syria. That's on record behind the scenes too. So it's kind of like this war is superficially going on in Syria and the Middle East destabilization stuff, but really what that is, what you're actually looking at, what it appears to me just from looking at this, is that's the necessary thing they have to do to restructure and reorganize this whole thing the way they want it so they can run this new smart, globally interconnected world they're going to bring about.
It's kind of interesting actually, because I found out about this project through the Bilderberg list for 2018, which we check every year, and I've looked at the section on the website called Background where they show you who's on the steering committee, and they have Klaus Kleinfeld right there. Again, the guy who used to head Alcoa and Siemens. Look at the past list, he's there. This year he's listed as the CEO of NEOM. That's on the steering committee. But when you go to the latest meetings, click on 2018 and go to participants, you no longer find Klaus Kleinfeld between Henry Kissinger and Klaus Knott. Even though I printed this list out days ago and I'm looking at the physical copy here and it's got Klaus Kleinfeld of NEOM on the list. Makes me wonder if something isn't really sensitive about this huge mega project that's going on. Kind of strange.
And we've talked about this with you guys in previous videos we've done on smart cities such as Magdar and other projects. And the future they're talking about, there will be literally no privacy. You will have a digital footprint follow you everywhere you go. Your digital doppelganger will become a part of you that follows you everywhere. You will have sensors in your trash that basically can tell whether or not you recycled. I mean, these are the kinds of things they're talking about. It's a little mind-blowing once you start looking into it. It's a lot more than just having Alexa units, turn your lights off and on and make sure you're not using too much air conditioning. It's a world where your every step in physical reality will have a digital trace on it.
And on the other side of that is the little country of Estonia, the Baltic country on the far eastern side of Eastern Europe, right on the Russian border, the forgettable little country with 1.3 million people. Well, its Prime Minister Yuri Ratas is in attendance this year at Bilderberg, and it's not just because there are unprecedented NATO exercises taking place on the Russian border, specifically in the Baltic countries of Estonia, Lithuania, and Latvia. It's not just because of that or because of the troop surge that is going on there on the 100th year anniversary of their original independence. It's also because Estonia is actually about to become better known as Estonia. It is a live experiment with a small country population in complete participation, an experiment, a live social experiment about how we're going to live next. They are doing it. Your digital life is about to become inseparable from your actual physical life.
It's actually a plastic card, have my unique identification number on it and also a chip.
Key to it all? One card. It's a digital ID with encrypted files used together with a PIN code. 94% of Estonians have a digital ID like this one.
They have already tied their mandatory national ID card not only to your personal ID and your national ID number, but to the encryption keys that protect that identity online and to all your transactions and records for banking and healthcare. And it's also going to institute voting through e-voting and all your transactions with the government, and further is allowing for the legal signing of contracts online through this card, and they're even trying to regulate the authentication of online comments using this true identity card.
And so you will have what is called an EID, and they've already rolled this out in several EU states. Belgium's got one, but no one has taken it to the level of Estonia, and you'll see it right there. You'll notice that chip. They're getting all of us used to having this chip right now. They've put it in all of everyone's bank cards. They've switched everybody over in North America to the chip system, and that's part of the transition into having this national identity card that's really just going to be your only card for everything. They have linked everything together in one place. They said in Estonia, it takes the average person 3 minutes to do their income taxes because they've already got all of their banking information all linked up with all of their government information, with everything else. Everything is linked in one place, and it is tied to you, and all of your interactions with your government and with everything that you do online will all be from this one card. Your medical records, all of it, prescription, everything. And so I didn't even know that much about, I will be honest, I did not know that much about Estonia until we saw them on the Bilderberg list, because I didn't recognize them as having gone in previous past years. But I had no idea that Estonia is now being considered the Silicon Valley of Europe, period. It's been called the most advanced digital society since they declared that internet access is a human right back in 2000, and the whole place was built up as this centralized data digital smart grid type of society after the fall of the USSR. So you have basically what's called e-residency in Estonia, and you are under e-governance. They have an e-cabinet. I mean, the whole thing, it's this digital interaction thing that happens. Everything you do online must be authenticated this way. There's no anonymity on the internet in Estonia. There's no privacy or anonymity at all. You have none. You have zero. There won't be any, okay? Because everything that everyone does online is logged and tracked through this card. And I've read a bunch of articles about this, and I've heard a couple of the officials in the Estonian government claim that this card isn't necessary to live in this society, but all of the articles I've read, and even Wikipedia has used the word mandatory several times, that this card is mandatory. In fact, 98% of Estonians have this card, and I'm gonna go ahead and guess the other 2% are probably, elderly holdouts and babies? They probably give every baby one. Maybe every single baby that comes out of the womb is signing digital. I don't know. So they were saying at first people in Estonia didn't want this card, and they thought it was a huge waste of public funds, and they were calling them ice scrapers, and they were using them to defrost their windshields when they first came in 2002. But 5 to 6 years later, life in Estonia without the e-identity card, and that's what it's called an EID. Life in Estonia without your e-identity card is unimaginable. You pretty much have to have it. And one of the ways they won over the public with it is because they have so many functionalities. It makes everything so easy, and it makes everybody want to have it. But at the same time, they also admit that they changed the entire legislative environment in Estonia around these IDs, and they can do all kinds of things with them that you can't do in other countries. One of the examples they give here is the fact that all of people's health data, because that's all tied in, literally everything, your prescriptions, your entire medical record, it's all tied in, is being used for statistics and research without the patient's explicit consent, because once you have this card, everything on it, that's how it works. This isn't just going to be limited to Estonia. They've already got cards like this in other EU countries, and France has already said they're going to reach the Estonian level of e-governance by 2022. And as you know, France has been having a ridiculous number of terror attacks, and I'm just going to go ahead and assume that those terror attacks are helping them to lay the laws and infrastructure behind bringing this about and putting people onto this system, you know, for their own safety. And so you have everything, all of your data centralized in one place. They have even attempted to make it to where your comments that people in Estonia leave on news outlets will be linked to that card, but people got angry, so I think they had to roll that back a little. But basically, they want to make it so there is no anonymity online whatsoever. And on top of that, they also have something called the Estonian Genome Center, otherwise known as the Estonian Biobank.
So if all that wasn't enough with the ID card, Estonia is also collecting the DNA of its citizens. And this is a voluntary program at this stage, but they've got people in their population who are already doing this, and you're signing over the rights and ownership to your DNA sample to the government. And they actually say this in the gene donor consent form. It says the right of ownership of the tissue sample and the description of the state of health and other personal data and genealogy shall be transferred to the University of Tartu and the Estonian Gene Project. And then they mention ownership again in the agreement and say that the University of Tartu in turn gives ownership to the Republic of Estonia itself through the Human Genes Research Act. So they're literally using their entire population as part of a social engineering experiment.
And they will own your genetic data. They will own those people's genetic data. Whoever signs that thing, they then own it.
And they're talking about how they're going to use it for research inside of Estonia and sell or give it to research centers around the world, but they're going to give something back to this country, which again only has 1.3 million people. They're going to give them data about their genetic profile, and they're going to have information just like from 23andMe and other private
Which
companies.
they've been really trying to sell to everyone lately. Haven't you seen the ads for that? They're everywhere.
And just like that, they're going to get all their genealogy and the interesting information about their particular DNA and everything. So it's going to be fun and interactive, but they are literally experimenting on their own citizens and collecting this data, and they're going to do a population-wide study. And because so many people in this country are participating, it's going to be a really key data set. All this personal, financial, socioeconomic, and online data merging with healthcare records and your very DNA. They're going to be able to look at that all as one data set for a known population of people.
So it's basically like having a digital copy of everyone who lives there. They even have something they call the e-police.
For public safety, police has these registers available in the car. They are online, they are up to date, and they can check your license plate to see if there is any good reason to stop you. Or you can just go on, you have your insurance in place, you have the mandatory checks in place, and the driving license is still valid.
That's right, it's the e-police, because they have e-court, e-law, it's all e, it's e-everything. So as this thing is all totally interconnected, basically all of your information in your card automatically syncs up to a mobile workstation installed in every patrol car. And so they immediately have all of your information, every single thing. Not just your address, not just your photograph and telephone number and driver's license data, all of your vehicles, all your owner and user information, all your technical inspection information, but also whether or not you own any registered weapons. They have everything about you databased in one area that automatically is fed into the police system when you call the e-police for the, I guess, e-crime that was e-committed, e-on you. They are linking your digital resident, your avatar, your surrogate, your sim. They're linking that to the actual physical person. What is that really? What are we really talking about here? It's a digital matrix overlay that will be the medium between people and reality. It will effectively blend the digital matrix of the internet with reality. There's not going to be any separation anymore. Everything that you do will be tracked and traced through this card. They're even putting train tickets on there. I mean, everything. So they'll even know what you bought for breakfast and where you went afterwards. I mean, it will all be trackable and traceable and linked to you. But that's not even the end of it either. Estonia itself has now launched e-residency, which is the first digital nation. It is a card that anyone anywhere in the world can apply to become an e-resident in their e-nation, and you get a similar card. It won't work for you the same as it works for Estonian residents. From what I read, you won't be considered a physical resident of Estonia, but you will be considered an e-resident, which they're saying offers a digital world for world citizens and gives them a digital government. And it authenticates you online, and you can start a company out of Estonia. They were really promoting this after Brexit for people that wanted their companies remain within the EU. They could become e-residents of Estonia. And the symbolism in the video for this is completely undeniably biblical in nature.
Our new digital world knows no borders. And great business ideas are no longer limited by where you work or live. E-Estonia is a digital nation for global citizens, for those who've thrown off the shackles of national boundaries. Literally anyone in the world can apply. E-residency is legitimate and transparent. A government-issued digital identity that gives you the freedom to run a global EU company online from anywhere in the world. Establish a company within a day, access business banking, use international payment providers, digitally sign documents and contracts, and declare Estonian taxes online. We're Estonia. Tech is our expertise. And through e-residency, we are empowering entrepreneurs everywhere. No matter where you were born, no matter what passport you carry, you can apply. Use e-residency to run your business from anywhere in the world. Unleash your entrepreneurial potential, because no business should be bound by physical borders. Apply for e-residency today and join our new digital nation. e-resident.gov.ee.
You have this card, this chip card, which you will get if you want to become an e-resident. You apply online. It doesn't tell you this. I had to go through several sets of documents to even find it. But after you apply online, what you end up having to do is go to a consulate or go to Estonia to pick up your card. You have to verify your identity. You have to identify yourself. You have to give them your fingerprints, and then you can have your very own chip card EID and become an e-resident world citizen of the first e-government. And at the end of the video, they show this card turn into a 7-pointed star. Anybody who watched our Secret Societies video will easily recognize the 7-pointed star and the people who are all about that.
I'm going to test your numerology skills by asking you to think about the magic 7. Most of you will know that 7 is quite a number in all sorts of themes, religions.
The 7-pointed star shoots up into the sky, creating what looks for a little while like a pyramid with an eye on top that is this star, and then breaks through. I don't know, you look at it for yourself. I mean, the symbolism is over the top is what I'm trying to say, and it is biblical in every way, and it doesn't matter. I'm not trying to get religious on you. I'm just saying what the people who are running everything believe, and they are creating one globally interconnected world of world citizens. You will have a digital avatar.
E-Estonia is a digital nation for global citizens.
And as they've tried to promote this e-residency as a new kind of domain of Estonia, Estonia, they said this is going to be really strategic in two specific ways. First, to counter Russia, because countries in particular like Ukraine and Belarus really have no other alternative but to register their businesses in Russia. If they don't get along with that, they don't have any alternatives other than now they can become e-residents of Estonia, and they can become basically EU businesses even though their countries aren't officially part of the EU. And the other way it'll be strategic, they say, is to counter Brexit, but they're saying that UK businesses and all the fancy London banks, they can still be part of the EU by getting e-residency, and therefore there's a jurisdictional legal loophole to being London, England-based businesses. They can operate as EU businesses without a whole lot of extra paperwork. And at the time of Bilderberg, Jüri Ratas and Estonia made the news once again because the European Central Bank was telling them that they couldn't create a national cryptocurrency and that they must use the euro as members of the EU. And the members of the Estonian government shot back and said, we were never actually planning to do that. We're talking about creating an Estonian cryptocurrency not for a physical realm in Europe, but for the online e-residency system that people can use Estcoin, Bitcoin-like cryptocurrencies to go back and forth in the realm of their digital citizenship and digital businesses. And so as this e-digital overlay is happening based out of Tallinn, Estonia, they've got a big deal going on right now for infrastructure. They've got a 5.8 billion euro project to build a new train line from Warsaw, Poland, all the way up through the Baltic states to Tallinn, Estonia, and then they have a second phase project to build an underwater tunnel through the Baltic Sea over to Helsinki, Finland, and truly connect it all with super fast rail in a manner befitting a 21st century technological hub for all of Europe.
So while they're doing that, they're laying the physical groundwork for a truly interconnected world physically. They're also laying the groundwork for a completely digitally interconnected world, which is really what all of these major companies are doing, and all of the ones that go to Bilderberg are behind and have been since World War II. This is the peaceful, utopian future world that they decided we all needed starting back then. This has been the plan for an awfully long time, and this is what Bilderberg has been working towards for an awfully long time. If you go back and look at some of the documents that have been released from different Bilderberg meetings, I mean, you can go back even into the 60s and see that they're talking about technology gap and how important technology is to their whole greater thing. And I didn't realize this at all until we started really looking into it, but this whole experiment that's happening in Estonia right now, I didn't realize this till we started looking into it, but that was built in from the ground up after the fall of the USSR, is when they came in and decided we're going to build this place as this technological smart grid country from the ground up.
And so at Bilderberg 2018 this year, along with Jüri Ratas from Estonia, is someone from his neighboring country, Latvia, as well, also unprecedented for the meeting. And it's a figure from the rail system. It's the CEO of the RB rail system, Baiba Rabusa, who's been in the news talking about how this infrastructure plan is in danger of failing, in part because of Brexit and an uncertainty about financing this huge, expensive project that they desperately need to get through because of all the important things happening in Estonia. There's a really interesting history to all that. Now, this is Estonia, the country that started Skype, which was originally going to be called Sky Peer-to-Peer. Going back to the 50s and 60s, the Soviets set up a very important center for the Institute of Cybernetics in Estonia. So that was located in Estonia after the fall of the Soviet Union. They linked up with Helsinki and Finland, and they sparked a computer revolution that affected all of Europe and indeed the world, all based in little tiny Estonia. And this year just so happens to be the 100th year mark of their original independence back in 1918 for Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, all of them. And the United States is celebrating and making special statements for them. NATO is not only running these unprecedented exercises, but they in the European Union are having special ceremonies for Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. Trump has issued a statement about the great friends that we have there. And the King of Netherlands, who was in attendance at Bilderberg, at least until his sister-in-law committed suicide and he suddenly flew to Argentina for a funeral. Well, he's still continuing his state visit to Latvia, even though his wife is mourning the death of her sister. He's going on to this...
Didn't she die during Bilderberg? She supposedly committed suicide?
At age 33. He's going on to
at age 33?
He's moving on, in spite of the family tragedy, to his important state visit to Latvia and Estonia and Lithuania, all three of them, an important event. And they're also sending the Austrian president, Alexander Van Bellen, whose Secretary General is also in attendance at the Bilderberg meeting this year. And the Austrian president is going to speak at the special Tallinn-Estonia Next 100 Years Conference, along with General David Petraeus, who is also at Bilderberg. And so there's a big Bilderberg NATO alliance special ceremony going on in Estonia and the neighboring countries right now because of this very deep history of technology and computing in Estonia, and very much because of the digital new future they're testing out and actually have already implemented in Estonia. They're not only talking about what they would like to build in the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years in these smart cities as they're doing in NEOM. Estonia has already put quite a bit of this into action. That's the framework, and by the time this technological revolution is complete, Estonia, so little known, will probably be the most important country in Europe. And it's already been a very important place because NATO's headquarters for cybersecurity and defense are based in Estonia.
Oh, this guy Yuri Ratas said something about cyber defense and how they need to build a single European cyberspace.
Where the Soviets put in place a cybernetics institute, the US and NATO built over their cybersecurity headquarters for all of Europe.
And this is where it all comes to a point. This is what the future is going to be like. Wasn't it after 9/11 that they started talking about putting in a national ID here?
And so on the global stage, they've already been trying to do this. The Real ID Act was attempted in the United States in the wake of 9/11 and the passage of the Patriot Act, and they tried to force all the states to sign up for a national ID card that was actually linked to a global ID and included RFID and chip technologies in it and contained a whole bunch of data and information. Well, it was so controversial that it got opposed, but it's been implemented phase by phase gradually, and many of the states have adopted it anyway. But over in Europe, they're openly doing it and their citizens are proud of it, and it's a source of national pride and something that they're all openly doing.
And making life easier is exactly the goal of this e-society. Estonians we talk to say they like and trust it.
I don't need to remember a lot of numbers or anything, so it's very easy to use.
For me, I think it's safer to use this.
Yeah, faith in the system.
Yes.
Because they're making it so convenient to have all of everything about you in one location, all of your data in one place, and there's so many services that you can use, and it's so great because you don't have to remember passwords for things anymore, and it's all linked together. Well, I think we've seen what happens to that in the future in places like China, where all of your data is linked together. You get a social score based on social media and things you say online and stuff you do online. And
by 2020, China plans to give all of its 1.4 billion citizens a personal score based on how they behave.
The government here says it is trying to purify society by rewarding those who are trustworthy and punishing those who are not. Chinese citizens are now getting social credit scores based on everything from whether they pay their taxes on time to how they cross the street.
Liu Hu recently tried to book a flight. He was told he was banned from flying because he's on the list of untrustworthy people. Liu is a journalist who was ordered by a court to apologize for a series of tweets he wrote and was then told his apology was insincere. I can't buy property. My child can't go to private school, he says. You feel you're being controlled by the list all the time. It's a good thing, this woman says. There should be punishment for people who can't behave. Waskin has studied China's economic and political culture for more than 3 decades. He says how the new scoring system truly works is kept secret and could be easily abused by the government.
Government and the people running the plan would like to go as deeply as possible to determine how to allocate benefits and also how to impact and shape their behavior.
you can see where this is gonna go. I mean, Black Mirror has a really good episode about just such a society where you have scores based on things like that, and all your data's in one place and you can't escape it. And that's really what the New World Order, one world government is going to be. It is going to be a global, international, digital governance that is going to transcend. It's not going to matter if physically you live in this country or that country, because you are going to have a digital personhood that's going to be linked to your physical person online. It's going to be digital and global. And if you look back at what Bilderberg's also talking about this year, that just so happens to be the 66th meeting in the month of June, which is also the 6th month, they're talking about things like inequality challenge and the future of work. He's not there this year, but Sam Altman went, and we talked about him quite a bit in Obsolete, which is the mini documentary we came out with a couple years ago. They're going to institute something, or they've been working on institute something called UBI, Universal Basic Income. The point that they're making over and over is that in this future world, people aren't going to have enough money to live because of work being displaced by technology and things like that. They're trying this out in places, and Sam Altman tried it out in Oakland, California, giving people a basic universal income. But if I had to guess at all, I would say that kind of system where they give you something, it's not going to be for free. It's going to be tied to a card like this. And when they fully bring that in under the banner of peace and world peace and prosperity for all, that's the banner they'll bring it in on, they're going to require you to get that money digitally. It'll probably be some kind of digital currency or maybe even a cryptocurrency, and it will be interlinked with this EID that will have every purchase you make with that and everything you do all linked together with all of your data and authenticating your digital person. Sure, you'll have the peace, the world peace and prosperity for all, but you'll be in a digital cage. Your digital person will be owned by these people. I mean, they're even having them sign things where they say they own your genetic data once you give that over to them. I mean, it is insane that people don't see where this is headed. I mean, basically, it will be impossible for you to be a citizen without this. You'll have to have it if you're going to interact in any kind of way, because they'll track and trace everything this way. They'll probably require to buy train tickets in Estonia, for example, you do it with this card. So I think eventually how it's going to go down is everything you do will be through that card. Will you be able to buy and sell without one? Well, once they get rid of cash, you tell me. It just sounds to me like everything. I don't want to get religious on everyone. I'm not trying to tell everyone else how to believe and think religiously. I'm just trying to tell you what it is known that these people think and believe and what they're trying to do. And in the name of world peace, they will be saying peace, peace. They will come in with this system and they'll give people money with this UBI that's like free money, right? It's free, but it's not going to be free. And neither will people either. When they're living in a world where they have a card and every single thing about them, all of their data, everything they do, everywhere they go, everything they buy, everything is linked to one card. There won't be cash. I don't know. I don't know what, if you don't want to be on this system, I'm not sure how you do anything. And that's what they make it sound like. It's mandatory. They say it's mandatory. And even when they say it's not mandatory, they say it's unimaginable to live in that country without this because everything is done through it and on it. So I'm thinking once they get all of the geopolitics worked out and all the chess pieces rearranged on the board exactly the way we want to, and once they build all the new train lines and underground tunnels and all the stuff they're doing with that, then they're going to unleash this UBI and they're going to put these IDs into place and we'll just be one global, digitally connected, open world like Facebook and all these other companies always wanted. We'll just be one digitally open, connected, digital new world, and your national boundary isn't going to matter. And as far as the populism stuff, they don't really care about that either. This is not Bilderberg is scared, okay, you guys? This is Bilderberg has had this plan. They've been helping to facilitate it ever since World War II. This has been the goal, and it is now getting into more of its latter stages. That's what we're seeing. Populism is not scaring anybody. Nobody over there is shaking in their boots over the populism thing. The populism thing is just a steam valve on making people really angry because they knew they had to push for this immigration wave. And one of the reasons they wanted that immigration wave so bad is because they want to create one giant global world where everybody is from everywhere and you have one giant world culture to share it all in, one giant cultural soup everywhere. They don't want you to have a national identity because you're going to be a world global digital citizen.
The whole agenda is to create a one-world government.
A new world order. A world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations.
All money is to be in those chips.
Plastic card, unique identification number, and also chip.
When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
The government and the people running the plan would like to go as deeply as possible to determine how they allocate benefits and also how to impact and shape their behavior.
And if you're like me or you, and you're protesting what they're doing, they can just turn off your chip, and you have nothing. You can't buy food, you can't do anything. It's total control of the people.